All right, folks, let's do our next video on Mars going direct in Aries on November the 13th or 14th, depending on where you're at. Now, Mars entered Aries at the end of June, typically spends 45 days in any one part of the chart, in any one sign, but it may almost made its way through the sign of Aries, slowing down at the end till about September the 9th, went retrograde, and then came to about the middle of Aries as it went retrograde. So let's say Mars going through Aries September the 8th, retrograding by November the 14th, kind of making its way to the middle of Aries, and November the 14th onwards going direct, and going direct through Aries and then into Taurus on January the 6th, 2021. So Mars is now direct, along with Mercury, along with all the other planets other than Uranus and Neptune. And Uranus and Neptune, like Pluto, have their own sort of very lengthy, and Chiron, very lengthy sojourns in any one part of the chart. So those retrogrades matter much less on a individual basis, so to speak, than, say, Mercury and Venus and Mars and even Jupiter and Saturn matter and affect us. Okay, all of that said, Mars comes into Aries July and August, starts to shake things around. Mars, as I mentioned to you before, is the testosterone planet, is the male planet, is the planet of desire, is the planet of aggression, is the planet of assertion. It's the planet, it's the hunter-gatherer planet, it's the planet that protects, it's the planet that goes after what it wants, it's the planet of arms, it's the planet of vitality, initiative, going after what needs to be done and what needs to... It's our taking action planet. Sometimes we take action to protect, sometimes we take action to defend, sometimes we take action to go after what we want, sometimes we're typically taking action to go after what we want, even when it is that we're engaged in some sort of protection or defense. We are pursuing our goals, and our goals may be go after this, defend this, protect this, acquire this, achieve this. And that's a great word with Mars, achieve. And how do we achieve? And what do we do with all that energy, that can sometimes become bull in the china shop? Where's the line between assertion and aggression? And with a Mars transit, depending on where Aries is in your chart, what house it occupies, and what that house stands for, sometimes Mars's effect is felt through external stimulus. Someone gets in the way, someone combats you, something comes from the outside that requires your attention. A parent falls sick. I'm thinking about recent examples. Something emerges. It's not as fated in terms of universe co-creating as Jupiter and Saturn, where things are really brought to you from the outside often. But there is this element of, it's an external person. It's not external fate, but it's still interpersonal with Mars. So it is another person falling sick, another person attacking you, another person behaving badly or behaving in a way that stimulates you. It's another person taking action that you may want things to go in that direction or not, and so it prompts you into a certain kind of action. Often a Mars transit denotes an attack, okay? It can denote violence, and especially when you have Mars transits with, challenging transits with Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter, Venus, as we've had recently, and we will again, there is a buildup of sort of this masculine testosterone energy that then seeks to, through aggression, find a way out. Because that's just what Mars knows how to do in terms of the buildup of that energy. It's a very yang, go-getter energy. The way we felt this, Mars rules Aries. Mars is happy and active and unfettered in Aries. And Aries is the purest distillation in terms of the sign. It's the purest distillation of ourselves. It's the purest distillation. It's the purest connection between who I am and what I want, with no baggage. Pure, clean desire. Childlike energy. Almost like when you observe children and they reveal their nature so clearly and so perfectly and go after what they want so unabashedly and love so cleanly. And it could be argued that Mars in Aries is not a very adult energy, But it is the biggest contribution this energy is making in the second half of 2020 is that it is trying to cut through a lot of restrictive crap and providing a certain amount of impetus to finish up the old and move into the new, which, as I've mentioned ad nauseum before on this channel, is the primary theme of the second half of this year, to finish up tasks on the Cancer, Capricorn eclipse axis and move to the Gemini, Sagittarius eclipse axis. Keep in mind that the next full moon is an eclipse, and on November the 30th, I believe, and yes, November the 30th, and the following new moon on December the 14th is also an eclipse. So eclipsy type of events will start to build up, sudden happenings, transitions, people passing on, sudden people being eclipsed into and out of your life, situations being eclipsed into and out of your life. This kind of lightning bolt energy that eclipses, the portal that it kind of creates, is going to start to accelerate as we head into this time period. And then the time period between the eclipses is interesting too. I'll talk about the eclipses separately. But the bottom line is Mars is pure, unfettered, self-interested. I want to pursue what I want to do what I want to do. I want to do what I want to do, and I'm not listening to anybody else. Kind of energy in the mix from the beginning of the second half of 2020 has been very helpful and very important to give our charts a certain amount of vim and vigor to see us finish up the old and move towards the new. It's not as if Mars hasn't had its challenges, because as I've mentioned to you before, Aries, Capricorn, Cancer, solar eclipse in Cancer June the 21st that has exerted its influence at least till November the 30th of this year, if not till the end of December. Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto, and Capricorn, Mars, all at a right angle to each other in Aries. Venus temporarily in Libra right now, finishing up its work in a right angle with and these right angle square aspects, as I've mentioned before, create a kind of lock, a kind of a gear lock where it creates an obstacle, and the opportunity it creates is for us to kind of break through the obstacle. It requires a certain amount of force, growth, to make progress, because you find yourself locked by the energy of self-assertion, is locked by needing to learn lessons from the past and integrate them. And then while it has been retrograde, so Mars, July and August may well have started to shake the ground a little bit and give you a sense of where things are to go and taking action, but it was inconclusive because it ran right into Mars going retrograde on September the 8th and then Mercury going retrograde in the middle of October. So as I've mentioned on this channel before, we have astrologically short spurts of forward movement followed by retrograde energy, where we have to catch up to and adjust to whatever this forward movement has ushered in. And we do have technically 2 odd months, over 2 months of forward movement to look forward to. So it's a question of where it is that it's going to take us. And just because we're in lockdowns and quarantines doesn't mean that forward movement is not happening. As I mentioned here, April was a time of unbridled forward movement, and between middle of March, beginning of April to the end of April, the world had changed, and it is still impacting us in the use of technology to communicate, in how that has changed businesses and the way they operate, how people can work from home or not. Big changes, big transitions. And for many people, 2020, however much it feels like we've been held in, has brought in a lot of changes and growth and opportunity as well. And for many people, stressful changes as well. So as we head into, as Mars direct in Aries came in and started to connect us with our own will and desire and how to move forward and be done with the past and move forward into the new, out of exhaustion or a need for us to integrate the energies, it went retrograde on September the 8th till November the 13th, 14th. And when Mars goes retrograde, first and foremost, we lose our vitality. If someone ever asked me what's the best time to go on vacation, I would say if you have Mars direct in your chart, go on vacation whenever Mars is retrograde. You're not, if you achieve 20 things in a day or 10 things in a day or 5 things in a day, you will get through one. And the biggest way to, how with Mercury retrograde and direct, you can notice now, once you're attuned to all the shenanigans and crap that happen when Mercury is going retrograde or direct or is retrograde. With Mars, the biggest thing as you get attuned to Mars retrograde cycles that happen every 2 years is you will know that about a week before Mars is starting to go direct, when it starts to slow down its retrograde movement, you start to find that energy, to find that motivation, find that mojo, find that you can actually sit in front of a computer and start to get things done. Find that things are actually getting crossed your to-do list. And that feeling of back to normal productivity is only going to increase as Mars gathers speed. Mars just went direct, so that's why I said if you give it till November 20th, November 22nd to really start to feel some of that acceleration, that movement, so much the better. Now, when Mars goes retrograde, the other thing that I like to describe it as is it's a kind of a laying down of arms. So if in July and August it feels like, okay, we're going, I'm going to do this, you're going to do this. Oh, wait, what are you doing? How? There's that kind of action in July and August that feels like things are being moved around, but it's inconclusive. Then the laying down of arms and pulling back of vitality might mean that everyone adjusts to what happened in July and August, has a line of sight to where it is that things are to come. But there's time to process, there's time to communicate. With Mars retrograde, unlike sometimes with Mercury, I will always say that with Mars retrograde, when Mars is direct, the arrow's moving. With Mars retrograde, the arrow, because the arrow is the glyph for Mars, is moving backwards, and when Mars is direct, the arrow is going to move again. It's unlikely that the direction of the arrow is going to change. So if things were headed in a certain way in July and August, you may find that between now and the end of January, they will continue to accelerate and move forward in that direction. But during this retrograde period, there was a time to put down the arms and get the battlefield to be still and to actually transact and be in conversation and see where things are going and what's actually happening. Very interesting when you think of it in the context of the US presidential election. I'm going to do another political video after this one, and because I did one on the morning of the election, November 3rd, just to kind of look at chart. And we'll look at this chart. We'll look at this transit and other transits in the Biden, Harris, and Trump charts and see what it is that they mean. So Mars's ability to go direct now, it's, in some cases, for certain people, the direction may change. It's not, but the universe is mysterious when it comes to things like forward movement, and sometimes ironic and sometimes has a laugh at us. As I said, April we were all locked down, and yet it was incredible forward movement that we're still very much adjusting to and still very much dealing with. Similarly, this idea of the arrow not changing direction, seeming like it's changed direction and you've had an influence of things, but not really. It's God or the universe finds ways to kind of keep us entertained and try to bring in a sense of humor to a lot of situations that we're dealing with. Not everything, but a lot of situations that we're dealing with. So the arrow moves forward, and we now get to see things ideally move towards some sort of conclusion. Wherever the sign of Capricorn is in your chart, because Mars, now that it's direct, will square in this order Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter. And it's already squared them twice, because as it went direct in Aries, it squared these three planets, then it went retrograde and it squared these three planets, and now it's direct again. And while it is in Aries, it will square Pluto on December 23rd. By that time, Saturn and Jupiter will have moved into Aquarius, so on January the 13th, I think it squares Saturn, and January the 23rd, it squares Jupiter. And so this aggressive pull, assertive pull into 2021 that is met with a certain amount of still needing to finish up the old and accept the new and bring in the new, is going to be very much the order of the day till and I would say till not only the end of the first week of January, but then Mars spends 2 months, not 45 days, because it's still slow, in Taurus, the next sign from Aries, on all of January and all of February. So there's an acceleration that is going on. There's the idea that Mars from Taurus squares Jupiter and Saturn. That triggers one of the primary transits of 2021, which is Saturn squaring Uranus in Taurus, Saturn in Aquarius squaring Uranus in Taurus. So it changes the energy, but there's this feeling of Mars driving the chart forward again. What you want, what works for you, outside all the crap, and how can the energy of an impatience with having to learn and incorporate lessons, but Saturn and Jupiter are powerful enough that they will make sure that you have incorporated the lessons in Capricorn that you had to deal with, and where that sits in your chart, and what house that occupies, and where the eclipses of release have been, you know, since December 2017 when Saturn entered Capricorn, and the middle of July 2018 when the first of the Cancer Capricorn eclipses occurred. I need to finish that activity up by the middle of December, move into Aquarius. Mars is still moving, and there's a sense that, you know, it's a little bit like when you have a plow and you have a tractor and maybe a plow behind it, that plow is just going to keep moving forward, and it's going to take everything along with it. So there is the sense of resistance, because there could be weeds, there could be things that are rooted in the ground, there could be things that resist being pulled up by the plow and move forward. But there is a sense of now that resistance is futile. And there is a sense that with Mars direct in Aries and then moving into Taurus, a more uncomfortable energy, but there is the sense that now the chart is just going to start to move forward. And the energy that felt so inconclusive, but you could feel the tremors in July and August, now start to move towards some sort of conclusion. But the chart is not without its resistance. I've told you this before. The lunations, the new moons, the full moons, the eclipses are oddly supportive, while the astrological transits, Venus opposing Mars recently, Venus squaring Jupiter, Capricorn, and Pluto recently. Actually, what is it, for 2 days from now, I think Venus squares Saturn. Mars now direct, having to square these 3 planets. You know, they're still... As the planets move into Scorpio, they become, as I've mentioned to you before, oddly this year, planets in peace-loving, harmony-loving Libra have been more challenged this year, and planets in brutal, truth-telling Scorpio, for some reason, are more opportunistically placed within the context of what is happening in the chart. So the more peaceful Venusian part of the chart is activated with a certain amount of aggression and resistance, and the more warlike Scorpio, uncomfortable sign, as planets move into it, introduces the emotional and relational truth of what we're dealing with, introduces almost and moves us towards a certain kind of stability, moves us towards creating opportunities to be done with the past and move into the new. We'll talk about that. That's not what this is about. But Mars's move in Aries now starts to carry us forward and starts to see how new energies can be brought in. And it starts to deal with the resistance factor. This forward movement still has to contend with finishing up the old and moving into the new. But there is the sense of, all right, we're going, let's go. Almost aggressively, almost assertively, being hit with these squares with these powerful planets, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. Aggression, violence, Mars square Pluto, December 23rd. Warlike, violent energy sometimes when that clash happens. Power, strikes, protests, I don't know, and then I hope we don't end up declaring war. Mars then squaring Saturn, squaring Jupiter, we're moving ahead. We need to move ahead. We need to wrap up the old. There's going to be resistance. The tractor's moving. And what we want in a most elemental way starts to dictate. We've had it. We're done. And the way we're done is we want to get to what we want. And it's not about rational wanting. It's not even necessarily about, it's just about what we want. It's about what is right in the situation. I'm done with this. I'm done with you. I'm done with this aspect of things. I'm done. Everyone is done. And we just need to want to move forward in a direction that makes sense to us. There's still work that needs to be done, but as we move that tractor forward, any kind of those lessons, etc., they will be learned. But resistance to forward movement at this point in time now is going to be futile. And also for those of us, the human condition is so interesting. We're frustrated when planets are retrograde and we're held in place like we were since September 8th, but especially the middle of October. And then we are freaked out and bizarrofied during eclipses when it feels like God is taking the wheel and driving it and we have no control over our lives. Or when there is this kind of mysterious forward movement that is fated and part of sort of a universal godlike design and we can't get our minds around it. So, be prepared to go from the unrest of frustration and stagnation to the unrest of bewildering forward movement, ideally, so that we can be in a different place by the time Mercury goes retrograde again on January the 30th. All right. Embrace your inner child and at least get clear with regard to what is working for you and what is not working for you. What you want to move towards and what you want to move away from. That doesn't mean that relationships or situations have to be terminated. It just means you become clear on a childlike elemental way of what is right and feels right, irrespective of what you feel you should be thinking or others say you should be doing, and what does not feel right. And that, in a healthy, assertive way, if it lines up correctly with your inner desire, with this kind of Mars in Aries, I'm going to shoot the arrow and I'm going to hit the bullseye way. Let that start to drive you towards bringing 2021 in now. We're not that far anyway. It's about a month and a half, 2 months as we're dealing with this energy. So move forward and let's start to welcome it in. And let's see what resistance we face and what final lessons we need to learn and what we need to wrap up, however painful, and what we need to let go of and what we need to create space for. That's what a tractor does with a plow when it is uprooting things. It is creating space for a new set of energies. And the direction of the tractor, if you want to use that metaphor, is going to be set by Mars in Aries, which is, let's just cut through all the crap and all the justifying and all the, oh, I need to be a good social person or a bad social person or a rebellious social person or whatever it is, get lined up with what it is that feels true for us, and let's start to move in that direction, and change and things and resistance and everything will happen, and we'll deal with it. Hi, leaves. Okay. If you like this video, found it useful, feel free to share them, subscribe to my YouTube channel, click the bell icon next to the subscribe icon so you can be notified whenever I do new videos. Welcome to all new subscribers. Thank you for the feedback that you've been giving as well. I appreciate it. Feel free to leave a comment or like the videos. Likes and comments tend to drive videos on YouTube. My contact information is in the description area, so you can reach out to me if you want to inquire about rates for readings, or if you want me to make an easy-to-read version of your chart that will tell you which signs are in which houses and which planets are in which houses and what those houses stand for. Get my rates first before sharing any personal information like your birth date, birth time, and birth location. Be clear that you want to go with my services, and then you can share your personal information. Okay, I will leave it at that. It's going to be an eventful few months. It's going to be an eventful few months. We have the eclipse on the 30th, the full moon lunar eclipse, a solar eclipse on December the 14th, and then February the 14th, 2 months after that, things sort of are going to accelerate and move towards that. So it's about time. It's about time. So let's see what it is that happens and what we can welcome in and what changes occur. For people who are dealing with eclipses in a more challenging or negative way, with situations, breakups, and people passing away and stuff like, I extend my sincere condolences and support during this time. Okay, I will leave it.